Hypothetically speaking, let's say we have two vehicles. On the one side, we have a beautiful, classically restored Lamborghini. Every part is exactly as it was back in the 1970s, and while it doesn't run anymore, it is a beautiful, beautiful model piece. On the other side, we have an M1 Abrams tank. This thing is battle tested. It knows how to move, it knows how to fight. Now, let's take those two vehicles and smash them together. Which one's gonna win? So last week, Tracy and I did a live stream fight commentary to the DKU versus Manny Pacquiao fights. And to be honest, the main event wasn't really that eventful. It was kind of what always happened with these exhibition fights. The undercard, while not the greatest thing of all time, was way more engaging than the actual main event. Now I'm sure I'm not saying anything too controversial when I say something like the greatest boxer of all time didn't really have a problem fighting someone like DKU. But that was never really in question. The question was A, did DKU offer enough money for Manny Pacquiao to throw the fight, which obviously he didn't, and B, how good would DKU look against someone like Manny Pacquiao? He wasn't gonna win, but would he prove at least that he knew something about fighting? Well, yes and no. Credit where credit's due. He does look way better in this fight than he did against Bradley Scott. He at least kind of understands how to bring his jab back to his face, and his defense looks a little more solid. Frankly, he looks like a beginner with about 9 months to maybe a year of training, but he doesn't look like anything special. Now you'll notice I call DKU a complete beginner because that's what he is. Yes, he studied all kinds of martial arts for the last 20 years of his life, but when it comes to actual fighting, when it comes to trying to inflict your will on another human being while they're trying to do the exact same thing to you, it seems like he's got no experience in that. Just like last time, DKU was tripping over his own feet, not really throwing any substantial punches, and seemed more interested in wrestling his opponent than boxing his opponent. Which is interesting when you remember that his entire system of movement, the warfare combat system, is based on him throwing super fast, extremely powerful strikes. Or at least, that's the way it looks. The only thing I'll say his previous martial arts training granted him was he moves his feet a little faster than would be expected from someone like him. But, like Manny Pacquiao said at the end of the fight, his movement wasn't all that difficult. This whole fight was sold on the boxer versus the martial artist. Well, it turned out the question really was, can boxing hold its own against sloppy boxing? And to that, the answer was yes. Now look, according to the record, Manny Pacquiao won this fight by unanimous decision. But to watch the fight, you would see that's not actually the case. Because DKU got knocked out, and I say knocked out, not knocked down, no less than 4 times. But since he had not only the ref, but probably the entire organization in his pocket, he was allowed ample time to recover and come back in and keep fighting. And while I can understand there's that underdog come from behind victory of at least making it to the end of the fight, in this case, that's not what happened. DKU cheated. He pretended he got hit in the back of the head. He ate up time he didn't need to eat up. At the end of the day, he bought and sold this fight. Now, as for the health ramifications of that, I'm not a fan. Because when you get knocked down to the ground the way he did, you should be done fighting. However, as someone who wants to see DKU get hurt, I was okay with it. But that being said, the record says it was a unanimous decision win for Manny Pacquiao, but the fight says it was a knockout, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. At the end of the day, DKU worked this fight. I don't think there was a world where he would have won it because even the most corrupt judge on the planet could see that he lost that fight. But I do think there's a world where at best it was a draw or a no contest based on how much he was holding the back of his head. So while DKU definitely looked better in this fight than he did against Bradley Scott, he didn't look so much better that I would say he deserves to fight someone like Manny Pacquiao again. If you ask me, I think his next opponent should be a complete beginner. Maybe someone with 1, 2, maybe even 3 fights, or a very handsome YouTuber who is interested in fighting someone like that. But what's important here is not the outcome of the fight, because frankly, that's kind of how anybody's fight against Manny Pacquiao is expected to go. DKU is not special in that he got beat by the greatest boxer of all time. What does this say about DKU the martial artist, and what does this teach us about self-defense training? Because remember, DKU doesn't market himself as a fighter. He's teaching warfare combat. He's teaching combat for, I guess, the battlefield and self-defense. Now I can already see the comments. No, those techniques are too deadly to be done in the ring. He was held back by the fact that he was wearing gloves. DKU set the rules of the fight. This could have been an MMA fight. This could have been a bare knuckle fight. This could have been a straight up street fight. He was the one making the rules here. He chose to make it a boxing match because he's choosing to use that as an excuse because he knows he can't fight. Now, I've already done a whole video on why DKU is a fraud and his training isn't real. You can check that out right here. But to sum it all up, DKU's warfare combat system is about doing all kinds of fancy, flashy moves against a mannequin, trying to attack somebody who's not really trying to attack you. He's definitely the most egregious example of this, but he's far from the only one. There's plenty of martial artists in your town that practice the exact same way he does. They might not be putting out videos where they're knocking motorcycle helmets off their students' heads, but rest assured, the way they're training is virtually identical to what DKU is doing, and it's equally as dangerous. When it comes to self-defense training, the actual act of protecting yourself from threats imposed by other people, your ability to fight is not the most important thing. What's more important is looking like you know how to fight, as in having a confident, bold appearance, being able to recognize when you're in danger, and being able to de-escalate or remove yourself from that danger. These three things are more important than being able to get in a fist fight. However, rest assured, you still have to know how to do that. Because should the worst happen and you're unable to avoid the fight, you need to know how to fight. And depending on guys like DKU and the 15th degree black belt with a beer gut to be the ones who teach you how to fight, that's a risky game you're playing. Because in the case of DKU, we can see how he handles himself under pressure. Like I said, it wasn't expected that he would win this fight, but it was expected that he would have a fight, which is something he did not seem interested in doing. The first time he ate a hard body shot from Manny Pacquiao, the fight was over. And if you're the founder of something called the warfare combat system, that's not a good look. And if you're a 15th degree black belt or your instructor's a 15th degree black belt, and they're training you to do things without pressure testing them, how do you know they work? Bottom line, Manny Pacquiao is still going to have been one of the greatest boxers of all time. The results of this fight was never going to put that in question. And DKU is still going to have his cult. He's going to hide this loss just like he did the last loss, and he's only going to post photos of the one, maybe two strikes that actually landed in this fight. And his fanboys are going to circle around him even harder, because that's how cults work. And it's sad, but it's not unique. This kind of behavior has always existed in martial arts. As soon as you get a charismatic enough personality who has some pretty cool looking techniques, you'll get thousands of people who want to play into that power fantasy and will deny any evidence to the contrary. But what does that mean for the rest of us? What does that mean for those of us who don't buy into that cult of personality? For one, it just means stay the course. It just means keep doing what we're doing, because hopefully somewhere down the line, the people like that will see that these guys are a bunch of charlatans and just move on. But for two, it proves that reality-based self-defense training, the warfare combat system, and styles like it will fail against basic combat sports training. Because there's a reason DKU wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao. There's no shame in losing to the best who ever did it. But there's a lot of shame if you, this master of 12 different martial arts styles, who formed the warfare combat system, who can knock motorcycle helmets off people's heads, if you lose a fight to a guy with 1 year of training. There's a lot of shame tied to that, and that's why we don't see DKU fighting guys at his level. However, if he wanted to actually earn some respect and develop himself as a fighter, that's who he needs to be fighting. It's not going to happen, but that's the only way that he or you or me can develop as a martial artist. Stop hiding from the challenges of training. We're training to hurt each other. We're training to get hurt. That's the point. And it's okay if you're not Donnie Yen knocking out 10 different black belts. That's not real. But the real stuff is pretty cool. But there you have it. There's my review of Manny Pacquiao versus DKU, and hopefully the last time I have to talk about this jokester. But rest assured, if he does something stupid again, I will happily talk about him again. All that being said, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you learned something. If you did, please make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and please, please, please turn on that notification bell, because apparently not enough of you guys are doing that. All that being said, this has been Rob from Combat Self-Defense. I want to thank you for all the hard work. Thank you for the hard work yet to be done, and I'll see you next time.